Any fruits can be grown in pots. You just need the right container, the right potting mix, and the right variety. Today I'm going to share with you what I reckon are 3 easy growers, beautiful berries that should crop for years to come: raspberries, blueberries, and currants. There's often a reluctance to grow fruit because of the perception that they need lots of space, but that simply isn't true. Most fruits will happily grow in pots to offer plenty of interest and fresh pickings in even the tightest of spots. So let's get some planted. Raspberries are always going to be a winner. They are absolutely loaded with vitamins and antioxidants, all the good stuff, and they're incredibly versatile in the kitchen. Given what they cost in the shops, they also represent plenty of bang for your buck too. I've gone for a smaller variety of raspberry that's perfect for container growing. This variety only grows to about 3 foot or just under 1 metre high, which means that unlike traditional raspberries with longer canes, these actually don't need any support. And I'm going to plant them into this size container here. It holds about 30 litres or 8 US gallons, and that's plenty of volume of potting mix for these to grow into, for both the roots to explore and the canes to grow out and up. Raspberries prefer a slightly acidic mix, which helps avoid any nutrient deficiencies. So I'm going to start with some general purpose, all-purpose potting mix, but I'm also going to add in a little bit of an acidic mix, also sold as an ericaceous or azalea or rhododendron mix. Now, a little tip for you here is I'm filling all of my potting mix into the container I'm going to be using, and then I'll tip it all out into the wheelbarrow here and mix it all up before returning it. And what that does is it means that I'm not wasting any mix and I'm getting just what's going to fit into the pot here. And here's the acidic mix. Want roughly 20% of the acidic mix to 80% of the all-purpose mix. It doesn't have to be too precise. The great thing about the acidic mix I'm using is that it is soil-based, and what that means is it's slightly heavier, which adds more stability to your pot, less likely to blow over or get disturbed. And also soil holds on to moisture much better, which means these raspberries will be slower to dry out in the summer months. Then all we're doing is planting them evenly towards the outside of the container like that and firming nicely back in. Now I'm planting these towards the end of autumn, early winter. But if it's very cold where you are, you might want to wait till spring, say, as soon as it's not too frosty and cold. Finishing off with a natural mulch not only gives a really smart finish, it will also help to keep the roots cooler in hot summer weather. And of course it will rot down over time, adding its nutrients to the potting mix as well. Something like this finer wood chip mulch is just perfect. There we go, how good does that look? If you're finding this video useful so far, do take a moment to like and subscribe. We've got a really fantastic back catalogue on growing in containers, which we're always adding to, so I really wouldn't want you to miss out on that. I'll also pop a link below to other videos on growing fruit. Currants are absolutely superb in containers too. Both red and white currants can be trained as compact cordons or fans, or grown as standard bushes. What patio, terrace or balcony isn't going to look all the better for one of these? Black currants can also be grown in pots, but as they are the more vigorous of the currants, be sure to choose a more compact variety. Today I'm going to be planting a red currant, and for currants I'm using a soil-based mix. You can see here it's got nice heaviness and body to it, which will be really valuable to it. But to add to it, I'm going to just put in a little bit of all-purpose potting mix as well, about 20 to 30% by volume. Great, let's get that all mixed up. That all-purpose potting mix will just help to open out the soil-based mix a bit. Now, for our currant, I'm using a bare root plant this time. If I remove it from its sack here, you see that rather than being grown in a container, it's just loose like that. This has been dug up recently. The advantage of bare root plants is they're often a lot cheaper than ones that have been grown in containers. Now, if we look at the stem here, you can see that there are roots coming out from about here and obviously further down, and then you've got the stems up about here. So we want to make sure that when we plant it, the soil level is at the same level it would have been in the ground. So let's get that in. All we want to do is make sure that the roots are fed right down into the bottom and are nicely spread out so they're not all scrunched up, and then simply fill back in with your potting mix. And just give it a little bit of a firm in as you fill. One of the great things about currants is that they will grow in kind of dappled shade as well. So if you're looking for something for a slightly more challenging position, then currants could be your answer. And then just like our raspberries, I'm going to finish off with a mulch of our lovely wood chip bark. And then prune the stems here just above a bud and at a slant, and we'll get fresh growth coming up in the spring. Feeding currants couldn't be easier. Apply a liquid tomato feed every few weeks during the growing season, or simply tickle in a slow released balanced fertiliser at the start of spring. During the growing season, I will need to keep this really well watered because it's only got the moisture in the pot to draw on. But for now, the bigger problem is it being too wet from heavy winter rain. If it's too wet, those roots may well rot, and we don't want that. So a simple way to avoid that is just to raise your pot up on either pot feet or simply any old pebbles so that the drainage hole is up off the ground and excess moisture can escape from below. And if you're somewhere where winters are really very hard, then move your container under cover, or perhaps wrap the pot in some sort of insulation like this bubble wrap, just to keep off the worst of the frosts and protect those roots from extreme cold. Next up, beautiful blueberries. They're just magical. Who doesn't love snaffling blueberries straight from the bush? But if they do make it into the kitchen, these are excellent freezer staples. There's no prep needed, you just freeze them as they are. And that applies for all of our berries and currants today. They're great freezer staples, on hand whenever needed to offer a sweet pop of taste. Now, one thing I love to do with frozen berries of any kind is make my own fruit leathers. You just dehydrate them once they've been blended into a smooth paste. This has got all sorts of berries in it. It's just so sweet and delicious, and it's a great way to get the kids involved in eating more of their fruit. Gorgeous stuff. Blueberries need a really acidic mix, somewhere in the region of 4 to 5.5 pH, and they love sunshine too, so get that right and they will thrive. So for the blueberry, if you're going to pot it on, you will need some of that acidic or ericaceous mix. This was potted up in the summer, but I'm going to match it with all the other fruits in this handsome pot here, so let's do that now. So I've got some of our acidic mix in the wheelbarrow here, and I'm going to cut it with a little bit of composted bark chippings. This is a great way to economise slightly, and you can add up to say 30 or 40% of either garden compost, wood chips, or like here, composted wood chips. Give it all a mix together. And now we'll get on and repot our blueberry. Now this was only repotted in the summer, so it should come away quite easily. Oh, there we are. Now, if you're repotting an established container fruit, a great way to revitalise things is just to scrape off the top inch or two, say 5 centimetres worth of the potting mix, and then replace that with fresh, perhaps with some organic slow release fertiliser mixed in. It just gives it all a new lease of life. And then just as before, I'm going to finish off with our mulch of bark chippings here. How handsome does that look? To keep the soil acidic and our plants happy, it's best to use rainwater. Blueberries will love that, and in fact so will all of our berries. Once growth resumes full speed again in spring, I'll start applying an Acid Lovers plant feed every 3 weeks or so. Birds are notorious for stealing those ripening fruits. The best way to keep them off is of course to use netting, but do not just drape it over the plants like that. The birds will be able to peck through and snaffle those fruits, and they may well get their legs caught up in the netting. We don't want that, so instead make a frame. The best way to support netting on individual pots is to set up a sort of teepee like this, and then you can simply wrap your netting all the way around and then hold it in place with something like these pegs here, for example. Just wrap it round like you're wrapping a present until it's all secure. Perhaps not the neatest job, but you get the idea. And if you have multiple pots, then you could create more of a sort of box structure by using verticals and then horizontal canes secured at the corners, and then pop your netting over that. I'm really chuffed with this lot. They just look great. It won't be long before they're putting on rapid growth in the spring, and then I'll be picking even more of my own garden grown fruit. If you fancy more on fruit, then do check out this playlist. There's all sorts of fruits in there, and I'll even show you how to create more fruits for free step by step. I'll catch you next time.